This conference will now be recorded.
All right, thank everybody for coming. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's 4:32 and it's ready to start our general services. Sorry, Larry. All right, thank you. Can I have a roll call?
Councilor Foster,
Here?
Councilor Moore. Here. Councilor Best,
Here.
Councilor Best is absent. Chair, you have a quorum.
Have a quorum. All right, I do want to remind, we do have a sign in. If anyone hasn't signed in, I'll pass it around. Could I get a motion or for approval of the minutes?
Minutes or agenda?
Yeah, I always skip that for some reason. Approval of the agenda and approval of the minutes. We can do it all the same if we want, or you want.
Chair, I make a motion to approve the agenda as written, and the minutes to consider approval of the minutes for the May 26th, 2021 minutes. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign, so it passes. All right, we only have one action item up, and it's on our Spring River Cielo Grande joining plans. And we have a couple of people that wanted to speak, so I go ahead and let them speak before we start, if that's okay. Y'all want to come forward?
Hey, yeah, who am I? Ivan Hall. Unfortunately, I'm the interim president of the Spring River Corridor Foundation.
All right, can I get you to move one more seat up? We've got a camera. We're doing this. You're live and everybody's watching you, so this way you can they can see you and hear you a little bit better.
That's
so cute.
Who's got a phone book?
And so if you'll bear with me with an old man while I had to make notes. I can't wing it like Bob can, so.
Well, I appreciate you not winging it like Bob. We don't have a couple hours.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Bob. You're still in the room.
I practiced on my wife 2 or 3 times and she said, quit mumbling. So don't hesitate to interrupt me if they quit mumbling. But I thank you, Mr. Chair, and the council people for giving me 2 or 3 minutes to give a little background on where we're at as a foundation. And then I'll let Bob wing it and clean up whatever I say. But the city established the foundation in 1986. I was a young man. That's 35 years later, I'm here to tell you that we're still active and want to help and assist the city in doing trail enhancements. Really anxious to it. I can't think of anybody on a 7-member board that wouldn't say, yeah, that's a good thing to say. We may disagree with where you're headed, but we understand probably where you're headed and we still want to help out. We recognize that the option that the Parks and Rec Commission submitted to you is probably the most expensive and the most difficult to achieve, option 1. But our foundation has probably been working on some kind of connection between the Spring River Trail and the existing Cielo Grande Outer Trail for at least 4 years, I think.
Sure.
And it's been frustrating because it seems like every time we get a little ways, then something pops up and cancels out what we're thinking. But again, we're not in the driver's seat. We're here to assist the city in doing something. We're extremely happy as a foundation that the city finally got the bike and pedestrian plan approved, and we thank the commission for forwarding it to you so that it's on record as a guide. That's a Lewis's term, and it's good. That's a good guide. I think in looking at the plan, and gosh, I think the thing's 152 pages long, but as a planner, I zeroed in on the implementation pages. And in there, in that plan, it shows option 1. And that alignment, I swear, is in the plan as shown there. In the background, I want to impart, and Louis, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the city 4 or 5 years ago submitted an application to the state highway department for funding that particular aspect. It didn't go anywhere. It wasn't listed on the city's ICIP. They basically sent it back, said, nope, sorry. Then maybe 2 years later, the city said, let's try it again. Got it on the ICIP. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, the state said, no, you need a community-wide plan. Does that sound reasonable?
That's correct, because they have submitted for plans. And I will say again that on Monday, I did submit for connection plan for using transportation alternative program money that would be available for fiscal year 23, which I'll be presenting an infrastructure as a resolution to go with my application. But it's, again, I'm citing the pedestrian plan that we've adopted, and hopefully the third time's the charm.
Yeah, and that's a rehab of the trail?
Well, it'd be a new trail.
Oh, it'd be a new trail?
I'm putting in 2 applications.
Oh, okay.
What we call a recreational trail program, which allows maintenance of existing trails, which I'm putting in for a project that would be very similar to the project we just advertised. We're bidding right now, going to start construction. It'd be an overlay of the Spring River Trail from Pennsylvania to Union. If you remember, we just finished, we're going to do a project from Atkinson to Virginia. The rest of them there is concrete. We did the part by the overflow parking lot for the recreation center. We did that trail with that project. So now we're going to start at Pennsylvania, POW Park. Everybody knows what POW Park is. So from there to Union. So I'm going to have an application, the RTP, which is more of a maintenance type. And then I'm going to have another application. And I just called it Trail Connections because nothing's in stone yet. But I'm asking for $225,000. But that wouldn't be available to fiscal year 23. And the $225,000 project, 85% would be federal money. So then that would only be 15% money.
15% local.
Uh-huh.
Hey, well, man, that's great news because I'm glad that saves half of my note that when you get to that point where they're asking you for what, $36,000 to match the local match.
Correct.
I think the foundation would be more than happy to say, hey, we're good for 20,000 of it.
Okay.
Don't you think, Bob?
Yes, sir.
And all I would say is, I mean, that's just an application. We still have to be selected. I mean, you guys commit, counselors picking which options for engineering to start engineering on. I know at Parks and Rec, there was no, where's the money coming from or that kind of stuff. So if I have a target date for fiscal year 23, that helps me. But I'm just here to let you know that there's a call for projects for trail project. We submitted 2 applications, engineering did. And
You won't know till March, probably.
we probably won't, till probably March or, early spring, January 22.
I think we'll still be around. A little worried about me, but that's great news. And I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but I even heard that there's another program that the state has. I think it's called Outdoor Recreation. It's under Economic Development Department, and they have $3 million waiting for.
Yeah, I'm unaware of that program.
Can I talk to Mr. Neb about it and see if he could have somebody research it?
Here.
I'm sure you could. I mean,
Definitely, we can, if you can let us know the
Okay.
information, we can do some research on that.
I got that from a pretty good source, a very dependable source.
because the application data would be the same data that we would use on these other applications.
And, I'd back off and say, hey, knowing how the political scene is, there are only 2 Democrats on the foundation. No, 3. All right, sorry. Don't put that in the minutes.
Late. Too late.
It's recorded. Oh, well.
Yeah, fantastic. Saved me a lot of aggravation. I want to thank you all. And I do want to encourage you to listen to Bob because he has some really good information that I think he could also impart that gives you an idea of where we're coming. And one little caveat, I know Bob will mention it. We had pledged on the Wyoming alley to help get that done. And we don't mind pledging, but we want to put a time limit on the length of the pledge because, you know, our treasurer says, hey, wait a minute, can't sit on it forever. So anyway.
You're starting to sound like the city.
That was my first thought when we heard this new information. Oh, I'm Bob Edwards, General. I'm a
Come in here.
Remember, gentlemen, you guys are being recorded and being live streamed.
Hello. Anyway, when you mentioned 2023, I thought of that same thing, Ivan.
Yes, sir.
When you mentioned 2023, I thought of the same thing. Well, that's kind of a distance away to have our money, you know, where we're not sure. So, I mean, it falls in the same category, but
Particularly on your 82.
yeah, there you go. Anyway, what happened to the map? Who's in charge? Robin is trained. Okay, anyway, okay, Jane Ann and her commission were kind enough to give us a raving endorsement for option number 1. Option number 4 went past her property and she would not hear of it. So we just gave up on that one, you know. Yeah, we didn't want to upset her outside right away. Option 3, of course, that was what I was going to do today. I was going to come in and be the, oh yeah, by the way, why don't we do this? Ivan's talking about option number 1. The way that is there, our idea was to go a little bit more directly north across 8th. So we wouldn't have to do, because Lewis threw a bridge at us on Monday night after the meeting, and we had no idea that we would need a bridge. And that kind of threw something, you know, in the wind. But my job today was to come back and say, well, you know what? Counselor Best was the first one to sign on the alley. And our position has maintained the same pretty much through, which is that there's a couple of homeowners that are putting a stick in the spoke of progress on trails. And my thought is, we have a couple lawyers on reserve. Why don't we just say, well, go ahead and file and let's just babble about this. That's the confrontational Democrat me. But since the option 1 has come up, maybe we'll relook at some other ones. And I've been informed here just a little bit ago that there's another possibility on the table that seems to be palatable to many different factions. And I think we would be willing to look at that if we could get some kind of confirmation today from you guys to pass it along to the council that you would support that move. And then we could just go away and not be a pain in your wherever's for other things, maybe. Yeah, I'll sign.
They'll get it right.
Yeah, I was adamant, you know, about, well, let's just fight this thing. Well, how are 10 homes holding up the whole town? Progress, you know, I mean, we're talking here growth and so on. But okay, we'll leave it alone. We won't touch that anymore. But anyway, so I'll back off of the alley because I always thought the alley was a good deal. There was no cost. Lewis said it'd be about, at the time, to stripe and go down Riverside and put in 2 crosswalks and some signage. It was about $7,000, muscle meeting, right? And we were prepared to pay 50% of it. But now I understand that if we were still doing that, we'd have to resurface the alley, and that'd be another 50,000. We were still ready to do 28,000, which would be the 50 plus the 6 or 7, whatever, and still split the difference. But if if there's blockage against the alley that we can't overcome, then we need to look at other options. So we appreciate Jane Ann and her commission saying option number one and passing it over to you. And I understand that there's some discussion to be had.
Well, and that's where I don't want to step on the commission's toes, but
It's a small town.
And I had planned on being at that meeting and I got held up and didn't get there. But I really see option two as something that's doable and done faster than any of the other options that we have. And so, but we had some we're talking about the safety with the golf course being there, but talking to Mr. Burris and the possibility of putting a backstop up for some protection. And then if we move the walkway far enough off the actual street where there's some protection, there's some space between the street and the actual walkway, I think we could do this a lot cheaper and faster and have it done without, without having to get engineering and a bridge in. I mean, I know that other option does open up eventual walkways further north, but we still have that option once everything else comes to, fruition. That piece of property that's not owned by us. I mean, I'm glad the church went ahead and let us have that little corner and said it was okay, but we still have a little unknowns
Right.
with that. So we don't know that we can do it. Option two, I believe, with all the other fixes in place, it can be done here. Well, the city never moves fast, but we're talking few months compared to 23 or years. And that's where I'm thinking,
Well,
something that can be
what
done.
really kind of balled us up was that down at option one, we had the people that owned that land and we were approached by another party who was going to buy that and then give the city access right away so we could run the trail through there. Yeah, and there's, the questions about the culverts and water pouring in and so on. Jim and I talked about this probably 3 years ago, right? Give or take a week.
Yeah.
And, our main concern was, of course, traffic coming up behind the people. But it seemed palatable at the time. And Jim was not saying it was on the cheap, but he could get it done. Kind of like Lewis said about the alley. We can do this without having to make a big deal and just, we can go. But then the event's gotten away. But Ivan, what do you think?
Well,
This is an alternative. I'd like to give you our response to option two.
if I could add in, I know Jim knows about it. And when we talked to Mr. Nebb about any of the trails, he mentioned how poorly the golf course fence is along there, along not just an eyesore, it's dangerous. Anyway, he had the thought, and I know Jim probably thinks, well, maybe this is not a great thought, but he said maybe when the city gets through doing whatever they want to do, maybe they'd set the fence back a little, like maybe 2 feet, and you would have from the edge of the pavement clear to this new fence, 18 feet. I'm no expert on bike paths, but I think 18 feet is a pretty good distance to give people safety and feeling that, hey, I know what I'm doing. Two-way bike paths are not recommended, but.
And there'd be some cost involved because they'd have to resurface the runway in order to
Right.
join that option two.
But that we have to do anyway with option one.
Right. And then the right along the A Street there, I guess it'd be crushed aggregate, Jim? Or something to that effect. So just to kind of speed this along, if you will, rather than going back and forth and yeah, I think that if that were to be the case, then we would kind of snub our nose at.
Don't worry, neighbor. Don't worry,
Don't get
neighbor.
behind it. No, but we would find that to be acceptable because it would be expedient and it would accomplish what we want to do. and accomplish what you want to do. Because one of the other problems with this, and we're all aware of it, is that option one is right in that area where 8th Street is going to migrate at some point, maybe in our lifetime, probably not. But, you know, it's always been unsettling because nobody knows exactly what's what. And that would just present further obstacles to trying to get something done. So let me say that we'll respond immediately after you guys decide what you would like to do. What do you think?
Okay, well, I know we talked about this before the meeting. I'm Jane Ann Oldrup, and I'm chair of the Parks and Rec Commission. And I live on Montana, and you ain't taking my grant. And in fact, the commission itself threw out 3 and 4. 3 mainly is the one that goes behind the homes on Wyoming, and we don't want to make everybody mad, which we have by doing that. And we discussed 1 and 2, and 1 we just thought was safer instead of going down 8th Street because of like cars coming up, and all that, and balls hitting you. But if you walk down Riverside, if you did that, which we do anyway on the Spring River bike path, I mean, we're right, well, by your house, there's balls flying over that way too. So, I mean, it's really not, I'm a golfer, so I mean, it's not that bad. But I think if we could put some kind of a guard up, like Jim was saying, that would help. But the Parks and Rec Commission was between 1 and 2. So I just want you to know that I don't think you'd be upsetting the commission by going with 2 instead of 1. Because we agreed with Jim when he marked it with chalk one time years ago, and we all thought that's a great idea. So I really don't think the commission would be upset as long as it's 1 or 2.
All right, well, I appreciate it.
Okay.
I like the option of 3, and I'm going to go up the water here because 1, there's not heavy traffic coming down that alley or Riverside or the little bit of Montana going over to Spring River. There is not, you're not going to move those streets. You're not going to move that alley. It's a definite. If the people are having a bitch fit, in the alleys, we'll put the path within the golf course. And I know Jim may have an issue with that, but if you're going to have to blacktop it anyway, that's not a putting green. You're not hitting towards those people. You've got it on city property, which the alley is pretty much city. I mean, to the middle, it's city property like all alleys. So put them on the west side of the alley. It's less asphalt in my way of looking at it. If you get the grant, you can do more to that and continue on with your striping. It's safer because right now, if you do 1, it looks to me like you're going to touch on Sycamore a little bit or get close. You're going to have to cross 8th Street. You're going to have the bridges. I don't know anything about that, but apparently you have to have bridges. Option 2, you're going to go across 8th Street. You're going to have to go down 8th Street, even though you're 13 feet or whatever inside the golf course. That's not slow traffic. I'm sure you've been down 8th Street. That is the main thoroughfare through Roswell. To me, you're putting everybody's life in danger on option 1 and 2. Option 3, I'm like you. I don't mind a little bit of court battle because Mr. Reichman bought 1 or 2 of those houses over there. He's all for it.
Yeah.
The only one that's not for or on the corner.
Matt Hinkle.
Yeah, and that's probably going to be ending soon. So to me, there's not an issue there. If there's an issue with them, there's nothing wrong with us moving that black gate in a little bit farther and putting our bicycles in there. I mean, you're taking 13 feet either off 8th Street or you're taking 13 feet off an alley. I'm happy with nobody getting hit because you've got babies that are in little bikes, you've got walkers, and Lord knows how many times I see somebody almost get hit on 4th and Montana.
Barry, I've talked to all those people in Wyoming, and it's not just Matt that's upset. It's the whole area in there, except for Mark Reichman, who bought the house, but he hadn't been there that long either.
Yeah.
But all those other people, there's a lot of older people in that area, and they're mad because they have to bring their trash out to the front, and they can't use their, they can't go in the alley and dump their.
Well, and their RVs, I've heard about the RVs and all that. So if you put it 13 feet inside the gate of the park, of the golf course, you're not losing that much property.
Could they use
We don't have
drive
a
up and
plan,
down
but
the alley?
They can drive up down the alley.
Councilor Best, the problem with that though is this is a fairway and you tee off right here. So if you're walking, if you move it in there, you are walking straight into.
Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah.
Matt were walking down the alley he wasn't, but they were going down the alley just the other day. So there's really, I don't see any problem there. but I'd like to counter.
But she's talking about moving.
Moving it in 13 feet.
And then you're moving it inside, and then you're walking in right towards.
You're
that.
right.
We thought that too,
Right at
but
the-
what about
Right.
moving the putting green? You're gonna have to redo it somehow.
Well,
And you're gonna have to move the tee box at 10 a little bit.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be cheap. So we were trying to keep this on the,
Well, when you run down Riverside, you're going to end up getting balls thrown at you too from back west heading east. So
Well-
there's balls there. There's balls coming off the tee
That's
going
true.
back the other way.
Ivan and I walked that Wyoming, right before the November before the pandemic minutia. And we talked to every house, the guy on the corner and 2 in the middle. And then there was no one in cabins and there was no one in the Carlton's house. So out of that 8 houses that responded, we had 3 definite no's, 2 maybes, and 3, I don't particularly care. That was our survey that we did. We walked the street and,
If you put it on the city though, you don't have to ask them.
well, I know, but we were trying to be good
Well-
neighbors.
I would rather get hit by a golf ball than get run over.
Well, I understand that. And we were always aware of crossing right there on 8th on option 2 could be dangerous, but you have a certain requirement to kind of pay
Well,
attention.
between 8th Street and Montana, coming up Montana between the Sonic and the stop sign by the tennis courts, you've got just about as much speed because they're hitting Montana like that and they're hitting 8th Street like that.
My only response to what you're saying, which is that if we cross right there by the golf course on option 2 or 3, you have the golfers that have an 8:15 tee time and it's 8:11 and they're hauling ass and they're not paying attention. So I mean, no matter where you go, you're going to run into the same kind of situation. You're still responsible for when you cross the street, you have to know it's okay. I mean, I still think it falls back on the individual.
Well, and the only thing is, if you use the alley, you have to walk all the way down Riverside. So that's,
You have to drive down
But
Riverside.
Riverside is
It's
not a
safer.
busy street.
It's safer.
it can be, I mean, but if you put a bike path there,
It's safer.
and then you got to cross there at Montana, which like you said is just nutsoville.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
Go-
it's less money if you do 3, I think, isn't it, Lewis?
Oh,
It
yeah.
is less money, except that you said we had to repave that
Not unless
pipe.
you pave on the inside of the golf course.
Well, then it's still paving.
then you have to move the tee box.
If I could let an old city planner tell you one other thing, I really like the Wyoming thing. I know it has troubles and problems, but consider this. The amount of population that is Central City can access the Wyoming Avenue so much better than over to the west on either option 2 and 1. To me, that's fairly important because I think you're then talking to a larger group of population that could actually hike and bike to the Cielo Grande area.
And if they want to start there, they can park in the golf parking lot.
That's right. Thank you.
Just saying.
Just make the golfers mad when they don't have,
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They don't use the whole parking area anyway.
they do if they have tournaments.
Well,
They
that's
park
not,
over Cielo and Grande.
let's not go to the extreme.
It will be after September, or October.
Oh, is Nancy coming back?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that'll happen.
In Jarena.
Okay, well, one of the things that, and I guess the politician in me can do this.
I'm going to have to play nasty.
Instead of limiting it as we send it to council, I guess, I mean, our commission said 1. I still see 2 as a good option. We have a counselor wanting 3. I don't see why not sending it to council with all 3 of those options. Montana, I don't ever think, not taking your property or anything, but that's such a narrow street
Yeah.
that there's not room without taking a lot of land away from,
We don't even have curbs and gutter where
Right.
I live. So,
Where?
yeah.
well, Montana, number 4.
Oh, yeah, no, Montana.
Yeah, and so what I'm thinking is then if we word this so that we send it and let council, 8 counselors decide,
Sort it out.
sort it out.
Well, if you do that, if you send all 3 up there, I would like cost for each one, assuming that 8th Street's going to move up to option 1. I want all this information out there and transparent.
Right.
But we have the cost for 1 and 3
Correct. I want
and 2.
I want all of the counselors to be able to make an informed decision on all three. The traffic, estimated traffic travel, you know, if you do the option 3 within sight of the golf course, Jim's going to have to move a little bit of the stuff around, but yet they can still have their trash cans in the alley and they don't have to complain.
Well, they will anyway.
First,
Okay, I do agree that the road's a little skinny there. We own half the alley, we own all the golf course. This is flat, that's up the hill. So if I had to walk or ride my bike, I like flat land. But there's also a hole in the fence here. We just repaired I believe we repaired the fence right here. We have estimates of what it would cost all the way down through there in the past with the wrought iron fence because it stops at the pro shop.
Yep.
But, you know, we got the sidewalk here, we got a fence here, we got a bridge there. So when we get you across here, it is cheaper to put paint, but do keep in mind that, you know, we're just talking about a wrought iron fence going around here and changing the angle of some things, which I'm sure it would be better than having someone run over. So we've looked at all these options in the past. We just need direction on something to do. So we do want to hook all these together and then continue to work on our trails down here. So, you know, maybe we look at well, how this affects the golf course. We've never done that. We looked at how it affects the road, the street, and the alley. So if I were to come in here and I already have my safety fence and I put some landscaping in here, okay, to divide my bike trail from the houses, right? And then put my trail, if I watch the streets guys build a road in a day. So, I mean, they're pretty good. If you ever saw that young man on that road grader, you know, maybe we just take a look at that first before we go any further. That's not an option here. Option is the road and the alley. Nothing's been said about how we can tweak the golf course a little bit.
Well, the tee box is right almost on that.
It is right
on the
now.
alley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you thinking of moving the whole,
It's easier to move than a green.
Okay.
well,
are you thinking of
doesn't have
moving
the
the whole,
drainage to the green, but
are you thinking of moving that whole north fence in?
Leave the fence there and put the trail inside.
Okay,
I cut you in at the end here.
okay.
Uh,
But how's that going to affect the golf course at night when kids want to play on the water on the green and slide? I didn't do that, by the way.
Fencing is expensive, whatever, but you don't have that option up there yet.
So I think we need an option A. There's an option A and an option B for 3. A would be down the alley on the street, and option B would be on the other side of the fence with the landscaping and all of that. And with Lewis's 2023 grant coming in, you've got that much more extra money to do your landscaping and cut your fences.
Okay, Barry, I have one thing to say, because I walk that Wyoming and Riverside quite a bit. And when you get to Riverside, Montana, it is a mess to try to get over to the sidewalk because it's across the street over by the tennis courts and not by the golf course. So that little area right there is a real mess and it's busy. You know that. I mean, it's busy.
Certain hours a day, just like a golf course, 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock.
Yeah, but it's busy.
We had proposed
To put hump-
earlier on in one of these meetings, or the one maybe at the convention center, of giving the homeowners a key and putting in a post right where the golf course fence comes out and joins the alley, right? And then down at Riverside, where you first can go in, putting up some of those retaining posts like at Cielo Grande, where traffic can't get in. And give a key to the grappler truck driver, to the trash truck, which they may or may not need. And then also to each homeowner. And so when their pool guy comes, which was a big concern for most of those people, yeah, I know. But he could come and unlock it and drive in and do
He had a problem with his RV. He couldn't park his RV. That was his problem. Yeah. One of the gentlemen.
Where?
That's
In his
number 2.
backyard?
no, it has.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, but he already has access. That was all just whining because his fence is up beyond the point that we were talking about installing these poles. He could still get in and out regardless.
And my thought is, like you said, 10 people to the whole city. Why are these 10, 15, 20 people holding this up to the whole city? It's not going to cut, it will cost more to bring it inside of the fence, but it's safer for one. however you look at it, because that golf course is not rocking and rolling. They know when they're inside a golf course, they need to look for balls. And most of your men scream when they go too far or whatever. I mean, you can hear them for miles screaming. Of course, you can hear the kids screaming too, beside the point. I just like option 3, maybe even option 3B, even better than option 3A, which is down the alley in the street. It's safer. It's just safer.
Barry, I just know those people. It's really going to upset that whole neighborhood again, though. And they told me they had lawyers hired.
Even if they put in, even if they're on our property and they put in landscaping, they're still going to complain.
I don't know.
Council Moore, you.
I think I like option 3 also. Not just for cost wise, but I think the idea of having to cross 8th Street is ridiculous. And the cost of going for option 1, I'm not sure why we went so far. We can do some cattle corner or something if we want to do something, but what do you think? If we decide thinking option 3 and you guys already said no to it, where does that?
That was our choice originally, was option 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
See, what happened was, Counselor, is that it was a done deal. It was like, we can do this without going to the council, yada, yada. It's part of the deal. They took the barrels out. They gave everybody there a cart, a rollaway. And then that's when the whining started, which was, well, one instance, my wife is handicapped. Well, but she wouldn't be taking out the trash anyway. So that's specious. Don't even go there. And the other one was that we'd have all these looky-loos and then it became NIMBYs, not in my backyard. Not to say that that's not the same thing that goes along the other trail, Spring River Park, on 4th Street. And that's been quiet. So it sort of evolved from that. And we thought, okay, it's a good deal. We're done. Well, then in about March, I'm walking down the alley like I do every day, just because I started to do that, just to be that annoying person that was going down the alley. And yeah, because they said there's 2,000 or 3,000 people going to start coming down the alley if we let this happen. And was like, what are you expecting, a pride parade? No, there's just going to be, the usual number of people that are in Cielo Grande, which is maybe 200 or 300 on a good morning. So it all seemed silly. And then in March, I noticed the barrels were back. And I'm not faulting Lewis, but no one ever called and said, oh, by the way, the idea is dead, until just recently. And so we felt kind of betrayed that, like, well, geez. And then it was like, well, they got a lawyer. Well, I knew that. Everybody knew that. And we have 2 down the hall here. So
right,
we need to factor in, lawsuit money and stuff like that. But still, that shouldn't be
not if you put it inside the golf course. If you
Well-
put it inside the golf course, fair game.
Well, then all bets are off. But
Bets are off.
when we tried to raise the fence from 3 foot to 5 foot, green chain link years and years ago,
Yeah,
before
they
that,
don't want that.
then they were the same ones that complained and said
It blocks their view.
it'll ruin our sunset view.
So put in tall trees like by my house and see how that works.
Anyway, this has been going on so long that it's like taking on a life of its own, but we've encountered this. No, our choice always has been 3. But Jane
And
Ann's
the
group said, we give you a
was
choice.
1,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
All right.
we're all stuck.
Okay, so what I propose is that we send it to the council with all.
I think that's too much, Mr. Minister.
You don't?
I think we give them 2. Don't go through and let them all look at all of them. I think, how long it's going to take? See how long it's taking for the few of us to go through it, if the whole council has to go through. Nobody got time for that.
Well,
So I think we should
option 1.
pick 2 good options. We should pick 2 good options. I don't think we should send all the options, so 3 options to the council. That's asking for.
I don't think you have all the options.
I just say give them 2 options to decide on.
Okay.
And not all of, not so that
Okay, I can agree.
either
with that.
or,
But I don't think you have all the options.
I know you're talking about A. I like that
Yeah.
concept. Yeah, with the B with the inside the fence. I agree
And
with
it's going to
that.
take a little more work for Jim, and it won't take much more money because we'll find the trees somewhere to put.
Well, but it's going to take another fence.
But that's still cheaper than A. That's still cheaper than
You
one.
got to have security. You can't just, the whole reason we put a
And it would
fence
be
up.
a green chain link,
Well,
which we probably already have
Fence.
stored somewhere.
no,
That was all stolen when they moved it down the other trail.
It'd still be cheaper than option 1 or option
no,
2
we
that needs
purchased
a
it. It
bridge.
went out to the fire academy.
That needs a bridge and all those other things. It would still be cheaper and quicker to get done and make it, I think it, like you said, the majority will be happy than than those few that are there. And like I said, we don't do it so close, they still get to empty the trash. I think we can fix that with that option 3B, as she wants to call it. I mean, and especially if Louis, what those 2 said that they can make it easier, then I would agree with option 3 too. So 3A or B actually, so.
Well, if we get.
Instead of one.
That would help too, though.
And I like the idea of having the cost for.
So do we want to table this? Would you feel tabling it until we get a little more
I would,
problem?
I'd say, yeah, I'd say table it until we
Table
get
to next
numbers.
month.
I want some numbers.
Get
I want some
numbers.
Numbers, right? Because you had said 50,000 sort of generally for the
Yeah, but
paving.
let's look at that because Jim's also got to look at the cost inside the.
Inside moving the stuff, yeah.
Moving the tee box and moving the practice green. That's,
Do you want a motion?
We can send this back to our commission too and let them have it with all those
Yeah.
figures too, so.
Be good for them. They may be happier
Help
too.
everybody kind of
That
decide,
would
I
be
think.
great. Keep the commission in
Yeah.
the loop.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would too, because that's one of
I
the things.
appreciate that.
That's what I don't want to do is make them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd appreciate
So I would say let's table it, but also send the information
Yeah,
to the commission.
Yeah.
to the commission.
So I'd like to make a motion to consider the approval to connect the Spring River and Cielo Grande path tabled until we get more information. It needs to go back to the Park Commission before it comes back to General Services. Is that adequate enough?
Information that includes
Yes.
prices
Yeah.
and timelines and stuff.
I have a motion
Second, sorry.
and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Passes. All right.
Thank you,
Okay,
folks.
thanks, Barry.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right.
Gives you more bills.
Thanks, Barry. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Philip, come on, big man.
All right, so now we have some non-action items, although that wasn't, turned out to be a non-action.
That's yours.
All right, so let's move on to number 3, review of property use agreements.
Thanks, man. You're welcome. Thanks, Come on, come on.
We have another meeting at house.
I can't think of his last name. All right, Damien, so we're, our Mr. Cheatham. I'll go. We'll be formal. Although I prefer to be called Barry anyway, but. So the Gateway Christian use or school use for the Noon Optimist Park.
We just updated with the changes that were talked about at the last meeting. And so now they're just information items.
All right. Seeing here that pretty much they put more in. Yeah. You have any
Some
questions
verbiage.
on?
They fixed the verbiage that we talked about.
All right.
No questions on my end, if that's where you're,
All right.
that's where you're heading.
Oh, cool. Anyone on number 4? Softball park.
There were some questions as to which sprinkler rotors to replace with and if they knew what they were doing, and we cleared that up.
Yeah, you cleared that up. And then I think on 3 and 4, that includes while they're not playing also, correct? If it's not within their 3
If
months.
it's not within their 3 months, then it's city's responsibility.
Okay. And then over at the McVeigh softball complex, that's only the new one, not the men's field?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Cool.
So yes, I did have a few questions.
For those that they've been answered.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Cool. So let's move on to the Cielo Grande,
They're paying, so.
They're paying to use here then.
Mhm.
I know that there was some, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
that there were quite a few spots over there, Sierra Grande, that they said the grass was, I guess they were thinking some other soccer people, some of the kind of tore up some of the road people have been kind of rough on some of the
The
good
turf, the turf is a little barren right now, and we know that. Problem is that is a high usage area. But their fee also reflects the fact that they're not the only user there. So we didn't charge them at the full rate because they are not the only user of that complex. It just wouldn't be right to charge them for
all of it.
all the damage that's occurred when they're not there.
So then the city eats all that repair that's gonna need, is the stuff that's gonna need to happen, or is it just water and mowing, or is it be some kind of major, because I've got a couple of calls that it looks kind of rough in some spots.
It does look rough in some spots. The problem is they continue to use it. So, I mean, it's hard to repair it as long as they're on it. We can't shut it down for a few months to repair it when they're using it. So there's nothing we can really do to it until they're done in a few weeks. I mean, we can't fertilize, we can't do anything because they're just gonna run it down. So there's really not an option right now, other than just wait until they get off.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to fertilize when we have kids there.
Right.
So. All right, that answered. Cool, appreciate it. You had to sit through all the rigmarole for the, but that's how our meetings go. All right, Mr. Trent, do you have any good news for us?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, committee members, we did just receive our operating permit for the Carpenter Park splash pad. Everything went well. So I believe Juanita is setting up for the ribbon cutting and be able to open it.
Cool. Now, I do think, and I think I've talked to Mr. Nebb about it, that we'd do a soft opening anyway and allow the kids to be using it before we had the official ribbon cutting so that we don't hold off the kids playing. And then also that way, a ribbon cutting with kids playing would look better about it anyway.
Understood.
In the background. So, because if it's going to be next week or sometime before we have a ribbon cutting, we have a hot weekend coming up that I'm sure the kids would appreciate being able to cool down.
Understood.
So, cool. Any other projects that we'll be aware of?
The library looks like it's going to finish up. The contractor shooting for this Friday, I think it's going to linger probably another couple days. And then we'll have a punch list of touch-ups and things like that. But the major construction is winding down.
Is the library open?
Yes, the library is open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 7 Monday through Thursday, and then 10 to 6 on Friday and Saturday. We're still closing from 2 to 3 for cleaning, but I anticipate that now that we have some more staff, we will be eliminating that. And then our next step is to be open on Mondays, and then our next step after that is Sundays.
Cool. All right. That's good news.
Yeah.
Anything from the museum that we need to know? How's attendance?
It's good. It's going to be open full time starting June 12th. So Saturday before last, we had a really great exhibition opening, some kids activities. People are appreciative, having a good time, and our planetarium shows are pretty well attended. So we're doing those 1, 3, and 5 Tuesday through Saturday right now. So the 7 o'clock show on Sundays, or sorry, Fridays. But yeah, it's going good.
And staffing, do we still need it?
I'm losing a couple of important positions, but staff members are leaving. But I'll be refilling those positions because I can probably be a couple of months. But we did have 4 new people on board last week, which is fabulous to cover our front desk in our new hours. Yeah, it's really good.
So you're losing who?
I'm losing Aubrey Hobart, our curator of collections, and Amberly Neely, our registrar. So the 2 primary folks that are involved with our exhibitions. So I'll be our exhibitions person for a while, but we'll hopefully fill those positions in the next couple of months.
All right, good. Now, Juanita's not here to introduce you, but you want to stand up, and we have our new director for the zoo here.
John, if you want to join.
Oh, yeah.
You can, yeah.
I do apologize for being late. I had to help the wife get dinner for the 4 kids. So,
understandable, no problem.
I'm John. Nice to meet you, Councilmember Chair Foster, Councilmember Moore, and again, Ms. Bess. So I'm learning as I'm going. So, what would you like to know? I know Juanita put out a report. I have the May report, but she gave me the August too. So I don't know which one you guys
On this.
I love the pictures in the charts. Love it.
I'll take credit for it.
I love the fact that somebody said, and I know one of the things that we're working on is right now we don't have a cash purchase.
Yeah, at this time, we're still closed on Tuesday, Wednesdays. We're doing all our reservations online through My Tickets. And if people can't purchase them ahead of time. Let's just say someone drives by. We are able to actually do it there on site with them or help them coach them through their phones so they're able to access it through that way. We're able to the reason why we do that is so we can get zip codes. I think if I remember right, we're somewhere right around that 60% mark of non-taxable based visitors. So we are gaining a lot more revenue this way through people who normally wouldn't be part of our constituents and community people. We are slowly going through and addressing any concerns that we've had. And one of the, I shouldn't say overly shocking, one of the pleasant things that I've experienced is with my curators, everything that we've talked about with Juanita's assistance and leadership are being done the way I would want them done. So it's not, it's just the accountability, talking to people and just making sure we have systems in place. And I'm slowly working through those as well with them. So it looks like the ball was already rolling. So it's just easy to keep it going in those regards. There is Wi-Fi going up starting yesterday. We were having some issues around our concessions and our carousel areas with people being able to do Wi-Fi because that's most of our POS goes through that. So that's being addressed right now, and eventually cameras will go up soon as well once they're able to tie into the Wi-Fi.
Well, and that's, I just love to see these figures because that's, people on social media will come out and say, well, no one goes to the zoo anyway. Well, now we have numbers, clear numbers.
Yeah, and we're able to establish a baseline to see where we go as we improve things, as we interact. This past weekend, we did have a Zufari Nights. We probably had maybe 75 visitations. Our challenge just comes down to we picked the wrong time to start the movie, but we did, we're very proactive with everyone and invited them to come back next month to kind of see when we have picked, because I wanted to start the movie at 6 and not 8. And I think 8.
I'm not seeing that advertising. I'm not seeing that advertising on Facebook, social media, anywhere like that.
Okay. That's probably one thing I'll need to look at and how we do that. One of the things I did do is I had to buy tickets for my family. So at least I went through our website that said events and I purchased it through that way so I could at least experience how our guests are doing that. As far as the marketing side of things, I can look into how do we improve our footprint on that one as I'm still trying.
I'm gonna start the movie at 8:30 at night.
I would prefer to start it at 8 because at 6 there's not.
It's too light.
Too light.
Yeah.
Drive-ins where I went.
But that's on a Saturday night then.
That's on a Saturday. We're looking at probably also doing it on a Friday. That way, if we need to be closed during the day, we're not really messing up any morning attendance. So obviously there were some hiccups on our first deal. We wrote down our notes and we're trying to implement them and adjust as we can as well.
One of the things that I know there's been so much change and it's going so well. One of the things that I eventually want us to get pushed, and I wish we would have got it done before the UFO festival just to get it, but I was wanting to get in conjunction with the UFO museum, get a special ticket purchase for that someone buys buys it and they have entrance to all 3, and even try to get the Anderson in, even though we know it's not a purchase plate, but have them advertise in it so that then that way we're drawing on all the major cards to pull back from everybody.
I wholeheartedly agree. I've tried to do partnerships with other museums, joint memberships for a discount, all the other things at other places I've worked at. Luckily, we have a lot of connections. We're all part of the same family, and it should be easier to tie into that. But that's me working within the system and trying to understand it. But I think it's a good idea too.
We have so much going on right now, but trying to get that done, because if we can get it done to the point where we even have a vendor get us a percentage of it and we have them selling it at our all the hotels up and down, then that way you'll see the fact that I think that we'll have plenty of people buy it. May not go to the zoo, they'll go to the museum, may do 2 out of the 3 of them, but you're still getting the funds for
the ticket goes for $30. We parcel it out for the 3 venues. We each get $10 regardless if they visit us or not.
Exactly. And so we're getting that. I did have, and this goes back to Ms. Brooks. I did have the opportunity to grab one of our visitors because, you see visitors to our city that aren't Roswellites because they're walking around with the sticker on. And I grabbed him and happened to talk to him and said, well, where have you been? What have you seen? And how was it? He said he liked the UFO museum, which might shade the other part, but he loved Roswell Museum and Art Center. He said he walked through there. He happened to go through the workshop and loved the workshop and loved all, and he was, he loved what he saw. And so it was nice. I try to grab somebody every once in a while that I know is not a Roswellite and just say, hey, what have you seen? And I asked him about the zoo. He hadn't got to go to the zoo, but he was only from Clovis, so he'll be back down, and so he'll hit the zoo up. Yes, Ms. Brooks.
That just gets me thinking that, like, we want to cross market, but we haven't really been cross marketing. So like, for instance, I have a TV in my lobby. Let's get an advertisement for the zoo and, maybe we do something for the UFO museum too. But I agree with the ticket thing. I think it's just a matter of us getting our POS systems online and functioning. So I think we'll eventually get there because I know the UFO museum's into the idea too. But I think it's just the cross marketing, so we could do a better job at that for sure.
And I think what we're trying to do is give the best experience to our visitors.
Yep.
And that's the key. It's not just, we have so much to offer, but if we can give them the best experience, they're going to go.
The goal is if I can keep them here for a day, I can get them to eat and I can get them to stay.
Yeah.
And to show them that they have multiple things. I've experienced this with a lot of small towns, even college towns. They come in for a football game, but if I can just give them a couple of extra hours, next thing you know, it's like, well, it's too late. Let's get a room.
Let's get a room, and we can get more GRT and seeing an experience. I mean, I really think one of the things we've got to start selling is our planetarium. I mean, it's such an awesome experience too, that if we get all those together, people can, stay a weekend or say, we need to go back there and then, and then plan a trip to come back to, so that if they didn't get to see everything. But that's the key to it, because our city sells itself once people are here. But anyway, I appreciate having a director and getting to meet you. And there are definitely some things that I'll be looking you up and talking to you about, because you're doing it. I'm not saying you because you just got here, but your staff has been doing a great job. It's gone a long way. And to have somebody with some experience is going to be really.
And I would like to invite each and every one of you guys to stop by the zoo and give me that history, give me the stories of you guys growing up or your first experience there and all that. So that.
Well, I used to be the biggest fighter of putting a ticket on the zoo and putting a ticket on the museum. But then I realized it's selling. I mean, and if people see that it's free, they don't think it's as good as.
And I've worked for a couple of other free zoos, and I think I mentioned it a little bit in my interview with you and getting together, is the two other zoos that I worked at that were free. We started the admissions fee, and we also did statistical analysis beforehand to make the case. And we found out my least zoo was in Hutchinson, Kansas. We had about 50% non-taxable base. In Hattiesburg, Mississippi, it was 75% non-taxable base. So it is a good way of sitting there saying we're just trying to let the people who are using it to pay for it and help us make it better.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody showing up. I appreciate the good news. And all right. We good. Let's go ahead and call it and adjourn at 5:30. Now we need to, is it 5:30 that's starting?
Yes.
So we need to get over.
Did we set up a meeting with that one customer about the